Senior!
Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes.
He's going for it.
Yes! Oh, what a goal! What a goal!
And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And isn't winning fun, guys? To go into Subaru Park and to see blowout after blowout, the Philadelphia Union defeating Orlando City in a 5-1 game. 5 straight home games now that the Union have scored 4+ goals, outscoring opponents 25-3. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up, and it doesn't seem like it's real life. And I know every single week we talk about this on the podcast, with the Union creating history, with the Union doing this, the Union doing that. And it's happening right in front of our eyes, right? There's no denying the history that we're witnessing with this team. But somehow I find myself week in, week out getting blown away just seeing what the Union are doing to teams. And you look at Subaru Park, and it has became such a fortress. And I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, I don't know if you guys saw on the website in my match preview leading up for this game against Orlando City, but I looked at the Union's home form since that loss in September of last year against Club America in the CONCACAF Champions League. And I know we've referenced that game on this podcast in the past, how that game's really ignited a fire in this team. And I know we've talked about the New York City loss in the Eastern Conference Finals igniting a fire in this team. But seriously, when you go and look at what the Union are doing since that game against Club America, they are, prior to this game against Orlando City, they were 15 wins and 5 draws in 20 matches played, not including the playoffs, at Subaru Park since that loss against Club America, September 15th of 2021. That is 75% of games won at home. And then you go ahead and look, like I said, the last 5 games, scoring 4+ goals in all 5 of those games, outscoring opponents 25-3. That is unheard of. This is an insane run that the Union are on. And you look, not including last night's game, but that run from when they got knocked out, and we're only talking about league games, the Union have outscored opponents 50-9. That's 2.5 goals scored per game and 0.45 goals conceded per game. What they are doing is just, you're really lost for words. And even Jim Curtin talked about that after the game, saying he's speechless. He doesn't know what to say with this scoring run that the Union have been going on at home, to being this dominant at home. The only other team that I was thinking of that has been this dominant at home is New York City because of playing on the baseball stadium. But I was like, you know what, let me go ahead and look at the top 5 teams in MLS since the Union got knocked out of Champions League against Club America. And the top 5 teams in MLS with the most wins prior to the games over the weekend: number 1, Philadelphia Union, 15 wins, no losses, 5 draws. They win 75% of the games at home. Number 2, LAFC, they have 14 wins, 2 losses, 3 draws. They win 82.3% of their games at home. Real Salt Lake are 11-4-4. They win 57.8% of their games at home. Austin FC, 11-5-4, 57.8% wins at home. And Portland Timbers, 11-3-6. They win 55% of their games. And the reason I bring this up is, we were talking about this in the press box. What teams do you want to see in the playoffs? What teams don't you want to see in the playoffs? And we're talking about the first round because we're all assuming we're going to win the first spot in the East. Because as things stand, not only are we first in the East, but we're also first in the Supporters Shield race with 63 points to LAFC's 60, with LAFC losing to FC Dallas on Saturday night. And the reason I looked up these numbers and everything is because I wanted to see what other teams have been dominant at home in MLS. I want to see just, if the Union have to go on the road for the MLS Cup final, what teams in the West are good. And I thought there was going to be other teams in the Eastern Conference that had a high win percentage at home. But 4 out of those 5 teams are all Western Conference teams. And I think that tells you just how dominant the Western Conference really is. And you look, Portland Timbers, Austin, Real Salt Lake, and LAFC, all 4 of those clubs are in a playoff spot right now. And they've all been tremendous at home since September 15th of 2021. And I think that really talks about how maybe weak the Eastern Conference is. And like I said, we were talking about this in the press box, what teams we don't want to see in the Eastern Conference semifinals. And for me personally, I don't want to see the Red Bulls in the first game, and I don't want to see Cincinnati. I think there's Red Bull games where we're just way too similar, and all it takes is one mistake from the other team, and usually that's going to be the only goal you get. We saw it last year in the playoffs against New York Red Bulls. We saw it this season against New York Red Bulls away, and I know we won that game 2-0, but there's not typically high scoring between the Red Bulls and the Union. Just because these two teams cancel each other out with their playing styles. And so I don't want to see Red Bulls in the first game of the playoffs, let alone in the playoffs, period. And then Cincinnati, I've talked about Cincinnati here on the podcast in the past with Pat Noonan knowing how to beat the Union, how we haven't been able to get a win against Cincinnati this season. And so I would not want to see Cincinnati in the first game of the playoffs for us because let's say Cincinnati gets to host the game. They win that game. They advance to play us. They're going to have a lot of momentum. And we're going to come into that game having rest, not playing a game in a while. And I know it's not like the 2020 season where we had, 19 days, 21 days, something absurd amount of rest from our last league game to our first playoff game. And it's not like New England last year where they also had a long layoff. So I know that may not play a huge factor into the number 1 seeds getting knocked out of the playoffs of the season in the very first game. But, it is always concerning, though. It is always concerning to me. And so I think our first game in the playoffs, having a red-hot Cincinnati come in there, I think that's a little bit scary. I wouldn't mind seeing Columbus. I wouldn't mind seeing New York City. New York City is probably the team I want to see first in the playoffs. But let's be honest. New York City, they might not even make it that far in the playoffs. And I kind of want to say they won't make it in the playoffs, but with 3 games left with 46 points, you got to imagine that New York City are pretty much going to get in the playoffs. But it's very possible once they get into the playoffs that they get knocked out. So I think personally for me, New York City or Columbus, I would want to see in the first game. And then Cincinnati and Red Bulls are the 2 teams that I would not want to see in our first game. And yeah, I just thought it was interesting that the Eastern Conference has not been great at home since September 15th, 2021. But yeah, regardless, what a crazy run the Union have been on to just completely demolish their teams at home. And I do want to go ahead before we talk about this Orlando City game. And by the way, yes, again, no news because, like I said last week, so hard to get much MLS news this time of the season. And so, again, no news for this episode. But I want to give a shout out to my great friend, Andrew Deal, who was in the press box with me against Orlando City. He did a fantastic job live tweeting the game, memeing I mean, I'm still getting likes on Twitter with some of the memes that he made, and yeah, it was great to have Andrew with me in the press box for his first game. Definitely made it a lot more easier to look up stats, take notes, and everything, and not pay attention to all right, trying to live tweet, look up stats, and that way both of us could get on stats where it's not just me looking up stuff. And so I'm just really, really thankful for Andrew coming out to the game. I know he said he had a lot of fun. Hopefully, we can get him out there for the Toronto game. But yeah, I really appreciate Andrew for coming to the game, live tweeting. And if you guys don't know, the very first website that I had, Andrew created that for me. And then I was like, not really understanding this website all that well. It's not really doing what I want. And so Andrew talked me into other websites to potentially build the current website on. And so, I mean, Andrew's been a lot of help with maybe not so much the podcast itself, but everything on the back end. And Andrew's been a fantastic friend, a fantastic help for the podcast. And you guys heard me a couple episodes ago give my buddy Brad Fair a shout out. So yeah, it's always good to surround yourself with like-minded people, people that want to invest in you, people that have common interest as you, and um, just want to see you continue to grow. And so, Andrew, Brad, I really appreciate both of them. And if you guys want to, go ahead and give Andrew a follow on Twitter. I believe it's Real Deal is his Twitter handle, real_deal. That might be wrong because I don't have it pulled up right now on my laptop, but I'll leave it in the show notes if you guys want to go ahead and drop him a follow because he absolutely killed it on the Twitter page against Orlando City. But let's go ahead and talk about that game against Orlando City. And in my opinion, the first 20, 30 minutes of this game was extremely hard to watch. You had 10 fouls in the first 30 minutes, and then you had that challenge from Jose Martinez on Cartagena, where Jose Martinez went chest to chest with him, according to Jose Martinez and according to the referee, because neither player got a yellow card for this foul. And the one thing that I think the referee should have done is actually booked Cartagena because he sold it. He sold it like he got headbutted in the face. And we've seen referees give yellow cards for simulation. The referee would have had every right to book him for that flop, for selling it like he did, where the referee didn't believe that he headbutted him. VAR certainly didn't believe that he headbutted him. And I don't know if the referee that they showed in the press box and on the broadcast, if that's the only angle that VAR had. Because you do see Jose Martinez's head move, but it's so hard to tell if there was contact or not. And the referee obviously believed that it wasn't, so Jose doesn't get a red card, because if he would have made contact, then yeah, 100% Jose Martinez would have been sent off, and I think he probably would have missed the remainder of the season because of violent conduct. And thank goodness Jose Martinez was able to keep his emotions in line. And Danny Higginbottom was talking about it on the broadcast, where teams, when they come in and play against Jose Martinez, they have a clear game plan to try to get under Jose Martinez's skin and try to get him sent off. They know that Jose Martinez, can be a hothead. And so early on in this game, Orlando City were fouling him, trying to get under his skin. And eventually they did, where Jose Martinez puts in the challenge and goes chest to chest. But yeah, I mean, can you say you want Jose Martinez to control his emotions more? Yeah, you can definitely say that. But, Jose Martinez is the player he is. So, I mean, there's no changing that. I mean, the good thing is he's not getting yellow cards as much as he was in his first season, or getting sent off as much as he was in his first season. But yeah, I mean, it's clear and obvious, and Jose knows it, that every single opponent is going to try to get under his skin to try to get him sent off. And it's funny, too, because Jim said after the game that if teams want to make it a street fight, then the Union are going to make it a street fight. They can go head-to-head with anybody. And Jim said that, the first person I wouldn't want to fight is Jose Martinez. And yet we have players that want to challenge Jose Martinez, try to set him off. And We see it every game where there's always back and forths with Jose Martinez and whatever opponent Jose's just got done pissing off. And again, I think it was just very clear and obvious that Orlando wanted to come here and put Philadelphia off the game by fouling them and making them frustrated. And then you have that goal taken away from Carranza in the 15th minute for being offsides. And honestly, from sitting up in the press box, it looked really close. And we never got a replay. And I went back and watched this game, and the same thing on TV. They never showed a replay of this potential offsides. And so, from me, I think the offsides came from Carranza probably being offsides prior to this ball being kicked, because Carranza was coming from right to left. And before Kai must have kicked that ball, Carranza must have been slightly offsides or something. And that's when they set offsides, because when he made that run off of Carlos's back shoulder, he definitely wasn't offsides there. So it has to come from Carranza cutting from right to left, because other than that, there's no way Carranza is offsides. It was a great pass from Kai Wagner, excellent finish from Julian. But yeah, it was definitely a tight call. Another moment that sticks out for me in this game was actually, in the early goings of this match, earlier than that potential goal from Julian Carranza, you had Leon Flock. He chose the wrong pass in the 5th minute, where Mikael Uhre is just making a run off of Antonio Carlos, and he has him beat. And all Flock has to do is just slot the ball to Mikael Uhre, and he's probably going to finish that play off and get a goal early on in the game. But instead, Leon Flock squares the ball to Bizo, and the ball gets turned over, and there goes Orlando City on the counterattack now. And so for me, those were probably the big 3 plays in the first 30 minutes of this game, with no team getting a rhythm to this game. And then you had the challenge from Martinez on Cartagena. You had Carranza's goal rolled offside. And then you had Leon Flock missing the pass to Mikael Uhre. And then you go ahead and look at the last 15 minutes of the first half. And I thought Jack Elliott was fantastic for, the whole game. But not only the last 15 minutes of the first half, he was excellent the whole first half, where you would have Orlando City's Michel and Joaquini, that they kept interchanging and changing, okay, who's going to make that run in behind Jack Elliott. And Jack was not caught off guard at all. He was excellent in just stealing the ball off of both of those guys. He had 6 ball recoveries in the first 34 minutes of this match, and it didn't matter who Orlando City sent at Jack Elliott. He just kept shutting them down, and Jack's awareness is just so high. He's such an underrated player in MLS, and it kills me that he doesn't get called up to the national team with Scotland. And I'm sure I'll probably talk about other players that should be called up to the national teams here in a bit. But Jack Elliott, just a fantastic game from him. But the first half, he was so good. A big reason why Orlando City couldn't get anything going offensively, and just the chemistry he has with Jacob Glesnes and Kai Wagner, and just the chemistry between the back line in general. You can tell this is just such a close, tight-knit group where they don't get caught out of position, where each guy knows their assignment. And you looked in the first half of this game where the Union didn't really want to send Kai Wagner that far forward, because they didn't want Orlando City to counterattack with Juan, who is definitely a faster player than Kai Wagner. But when the Union would push Kai Wagner up, Jack Elliott would slot into that left back role to make sure that if Juan gets in behind Kai Wagner, Jack Elliott's there to clear it up. And so, Jack Elliott was fantastic in the first half, and like I said, just overall in this game. And of course, once you get up by 2 goals going into the half, the floodgates are going to open, and open they did in the second half. And another thing that impressed me with the way the Union played in the first half is, they had to wait a while to get their first goal. 39th minute own goal, and we'll break down the goals here in a minute. But we've seen time and time again teams play with two number sixes. They like to play in a low block. And I know that was a concern for me a month or so ago where, yeah, the Union hadn't had the greatest success against teams that play with two sixes, that play in a low block. That's where all the Union's losses came from. And yeah, the Union had beat teams that also played in a low block, played with two sixes. But now we're seeing it more consistently, I feel like. Time and time again, the Union have no problem beating teams that play in that low block. And I asked Jim Curtin about that. I said, you know, years prior, you guys would struggle to break down teams that would play in that low block. It would be, all right, let's go to El Seno on the bench and hope El Seno can beat 2-3 players off a dribble and then cross the ball, and hopefully one of your strikers can put it in the back of the net. And this is what Jim Curtin had to say why he believes they're so successful this season against the low block.
Our combination play, so the 1 and 2 touch passing in the center part of the field, you saw tonight that it gives teams problems. I think we still missed a lot of big opportunities tonight and could have scored more goals. But so El Seno's got a different skill set. El Seno's give him the ball and everybody just watch and the crowd just stares at him and he beats 3 guys and maybe wins you the game. So we don't have that luxury. So we have to do it different ways. We have to do it through movement, through combinations, through attacking certain areas of the field, certain weaknesses of the opponent. So it's certainly different. It still can be successful. And I think the group's really improved on that 1 and 2 touch play in and around the penalty area.
Yeah, and I would argue the way that the Union approach teams that play low blocks is better this way with the combination play between Jack Elliott, Mika Uwa, and Daniel Gazdag than bringing El Seno off the bench, because how many times can you guys remember complaining on social media, complaining at games, oh, well, we're tied. What are we going to do? Jim only has one plan B, and that's bring in El Seno. He doesn't make good tactical changes. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. And the only change that you felt confident that could make a difference is El Seno. And like Jim said, yeah, we don't have a player that can be successful beating multiple players 1v1. But this way of playing with the quick 1-2 passes in the midfield going through the middle, I think that's more exciting. I think that's better than relying on a super sub coming off the bench. Yeah, come playoff time, you want to have a substitute that can change a game, because playoffs are going to be low-scoring games, I feel like. I'd be shocked if we see the Union go into the playoffs and blow teams out at home by 3-4 goals. I'd be shocked if that happens in the playoffs. But, yeah, I do think that the combination play, the 1-2s, are a lot better this season than they have been in the past, where we didn't really see that. And I think with the strikers that we had on the roster in years prior, I don't think we could play the style that we're playing now. And a big part of that is because of the first touch of Mikhail Uwa, Julian Kranza, the speed, the awareness, the intelligence of them with Daniel Gazdag. So, of course, changing players on your roster and everything, you're going to change your game plan a little bit. You're going to change how you approach games. But, yeah, I definitely think playing the 1-2s is a lot better than relying on a player coming off the bench trying to dribble past 2 or 3 players. Yeah, it's exciting seeing El Seno do that, but a lot of times, too, when that's your only option, that's your only hope of trying to beat those teams that play low blocks, yeah, that's not great. So it's great to see the Union have multiple ways how they can beat teams. And it's also great to see Daniel Gazdag just have 12 goals in 12 matches. Him and Hani Mukhtar, they just keep going goal for goal this season. And you also have 5 straight matches that Daniel Gazdag has scored a goal. And that's the first time ever in Union history that a player scored in 5 straight. I think Jack McInerney was the player Daniel Gazdag was tied with at 4. And now Daniel, again, breaks another record. Yeah, he gets 19 goals. He's adding to his goal tally in this season for the Union, just getting closer and closer to Sebastian Letou. And who knows if anybody will ever break 19 goals in a season for the Union again, hopefully. But I think Daniel Gazdag is going to continue to add more goals this season. 3 games remaining: Atlanta, Charlotte, and Toronto. You would assume that there's a lot of goals left in those three games. And I know there's been a lot of talk too how, oh, we want to see the Union get the most goals in MLS history. Well, I don't think the Union are getting 85 goals, which was set in 2019 by LAFC. I think the Union could definitely get close to it, but they sit at 68 goals. There's no way that they tie 85 goals. I mean, yeah, I guess crazier things have happened, and this whole season's been crazy. I mean, none of us thought any of this would be possible with the Union, so never say never. But yeah, I would bet against the Union breaking the all-time goals scored in a single season. I mean, let alone the Union are already in the top 10 for most goals scored in a single season. But yeah, to break 85 goals, I don't think that's going to happen. But you never know. Yeah, 5 straight matches the Union have scored, like I said, 4+ goals at home, outscoring opponents 25-3. Jim mentioned too that fans are probably going to be disappointed when the Union don't have high-scoring games at Subaru Park. 5 straight games. I mean, we've come to expect that the Union are going to just blow out opponents at Subaru Park. And again, 50 goals scored, 9 goals against prior to the game against Orlando City, going back to September 15th. But yeah, I mean, what a great game from the Union. You also had 3 straight games now with a goal from Mikhail Ua, his 12th on the season. And I told you guys to go back to complaining about players needing to get caught up for the national team. Mikhail Ua definitely needs to be caught up to Denmark. He's only been caught up once to the national team. But I was looking at some of these players that have been caught up for Denmark. None of these players that are strikers on the current roster for Denmark are breathtaking strikers by any means. You have a 31-year-old, you have a 29-year-old, you have a 23-year-old who's currently injured with Wolfsburg. And with Mikhail Ua, coming from Brøndby, coming from the Danish league to MLS. Again, we talked about it last week, where 538 says MLS is a better league than the Danish league, and yet here's Denmark calling in players from Denmark. But yet, they weren't calling Mikhail Ua in when he was MVP at Brøndby, when he won Golden Boot with Brøndby, where he has 12 goals this season with the Union. He came into a brand new league, a league that gets overlooked. Let's be honest. The reason why you see a Denmark or Norway for Jacob Glesnes and Jack Elliott, Scotland, not calling up these players is because they play in MLS. And I feel like it's just lazy scouting from these national teams' points where, yeah, maybe they do have them on their radar. But in my opinion, when you look at Norway, their center backs on their roster are playing in the Norwegian league, which is a much weaker league than MLS. You got some players on the Norwegian roster that are without a team, but yet they're still getting called up to the national team. But yet you can't call up Jacob Glesnes, who's been one of the best center backs in MLS this season. You can't call up Jack Elliott, who's been one of the best center backs in MLS this season. You mean to tell me that your team's so good that you don't need a player like Jacob Glesnes? I think what it comes down to is, teams don't respect MLS. National teams don't respect MLS. And there's a stigma around MLS like, oh, you only go to MLS to retire. And that's not the stigma anymore. I think it's just extremely lazy from these national teams to not put in the work to scout these players, to call them up into the national team, especially when you're a team that's trying to get into the Euros, a team that's trying to fight for a spot in the World Cup. Wouldn't you want to bring in your best possible players, try different combinations, see what works, what don't work? But, because this player plays in MLS, we're not going to call him up. I mean, it's a joke. And I think eventually that'll change. And again, none of these national teams have said, oh, yeah, we haven't called in Jacob Glesnes, Jack Elliott, Mikhail Ua because they play in MLS. But I do think part of the reason why they haven't called them in is because they play in MLS. And so I don't agree with that. When you have a player that got 12 goals this season in a brand new league, how don't you call him up? A player that could help you get to a World Cup, help you get a Euro berth. But yeah, I don't think any of those teams, any of those managers are listening to this podcast care what I have to think. But yeah, it's just lazy scouting in my opinion. It's complete bias from a lot of people in Europe, and one day it'll change. But as things stand, nah, it just hasn't changed yet. Two more stats for you guys. The Union, they've scored the first goal in 22 out of their 31 games. That's happened 13 times at home too. I mean, the Union, we all know, Jim Curtin says it, they're not built to play from behind. It's score the first goal, and then we'll add to the lead. 22 out of the 31 games they've scored the first goal. It's unbelievable. And then the Union, they have 33 goals scored in the first half. That is the most in MLS out of any team. And yeah, you want to see the Union be successful come playoff time. The remainder of the season, they got to continue to score first. They got to continue to build on that one goal lead, which they've done a great job for majority of this season. But if the Union are going to go far in the playoffs, they've got to score that first goal. They've got to score multiple goals in the first half, in my opinion. But let's go ahead and talk about keys to the game. Number one, you got to defend and attack set pieces, I said. Coming into the game, Orlando City had scored the sixth most goals off of set pieces with 10, while they've conceded 8. And the Union were coming into this match with the fifth most goals scored on set pieces with 11, while they're tied for the fewest conceded with 2. I guess this kind of cancels each other out, right? Because the Union gave up a goal on that long throw in from Orlando City. But then the Union also did score a corner kick themselves. So I don't know. I feel like they cancel each other out. I mean, I definitely knew that set pieces were going to be scored in this game because we saw it last time out in Orlando when these two teams played. So yeah, I'm going to say that cancels each other out. So not a pass or a fail. On number 2, I said you got to contain Facundo Torres. Torres is a player that loves to cut in from the right side to get it onto his left foot. 5 out of his 6 goals have come from inside the 18-yard box. And so it was important for the Union to force him to take touches away from the goal, not to take any touches inside the box. Yeah, that's a pass. He played 45 minutes in this game, came in the second half. But, he was only limited to 2 shots this game, 1 inside the 18-yard box, 1 outside the 18. And most of his touches were away from goal, so that's a pass. And then number 2, I said, you got to set the tempo in the first half. Orlando City, they've been a great first half team compared to second half, where they've outscored opponents 17-11 prior to this game in the first half. And they've looked dangerous in the first 10 minutes of the game, scoring 5 goals. And we all know the Union have been the best team the first 10 minutes of games this season, scoring 7 goals, which is league leading. And they've not conceded. Hopefully that continues to happen in the first 10 minutes of this game. And yeah, that's a pass. 2 goals scored in the first half for the Union. 2 out of 3 of my keys to the game hit. And I think, again, as always, you hit my keys. More times than not, I think the Union are going to win. Hit 2 out of 3, not bad, and the Union win the game. Let's go ahead and talk about the 3 stars on the night for me. Number 1, Jack Elliott, 1 goal, 11 ball recoveries, 3 interceptions on the night, 1 block, 5 out of 7 duels won. Again, I mean, he's so underappreciated in MLS. How he doesn't get called in by the Scottish national team, I don't know. I don't have answers, and if I try to come up with answers, it's going to make me angry when I looked at players that play for Denmark, for Norway, for Scotland, and to tell me that you believe that those players are better than Jack, Jacob, or Mikel, I don't believe that at all. But Jack Elliott, fantastic on the night, and hopefully he gets his name in the starting 11 for best overall at the end of the season for MLS. Number 2, Jose Martinez, 1 assist, 12 passes into the final third, 3 out of 4 tackles won, 16 ball recoveries, and 4 interceptions. Jose Martinez was everywhere. And I know we talked about, players trying to get under his skin. Some fans don't like that, but it's a part of his game. And when Jose's been playing as well as he's been playing the last month, where he's winning ball after ball back, he's everywhere on the field. I mean, how don't you applaud that? How doesn't that make you excited? And I asked Jim Curtin. He had a fantastic switch of the field to Kai Wagner, where Kai crossed it into Ale, who scored on the header. That was just great awareness, great vision from Jose Martinez, and this is what Jim Curtin had to say.
Played a really good forward pass. We always tell our guys to trust the first forward thing you see because it's usually the right decision. He sees that one. He knew Kai was there. I was kind of had a great view for it. It was right in front of me. He hits that blind, but he knows Kai's there. You know what I mean? So that's a level of thinking and a level of passing that's a different level. I think on the second goal, too, Leon has a moment where he could have done the safe thing and passed back to Andre, but he takes a forward touch, plays the ball to Daniel, and that starts a 3-on-2, and we get the second goal. So that being brave and playing forward, I love that, and that's what we preach for our I'd call Leon a defensive-minded player, and I'd call Jose a defensive-minded player, but those two forward passes lead to goals, and that's important.
What more do I have to say about Jose Martinez? Playing forward. It's a lot better than playing backwards and side-to-side passes, right? And then number 3, Kai Wagner, 2 assists, 6 chances created, 1 interception, 6 ball recoveries. And thank goodness, right? We get to enjoy Kai Wagner for the rest of the season and hopefully lift MLS Cup. And our success this season, a lot of that's due to Kai Wagner. And I have a feeling, if we do wind up winning the Shield, I think there's going to be a ton of Union players in the team of the year. And all 3 of those players I just mentioned, Jack Elliott, Jose Martinez, Kai Wagner, all 3 of them could potentially wind up in team of the season. They've all made a great case for themselves this season, and I don't see why they won't continue to build that case for the last 3 games of the season. But let's go ahead and talk about the goal breakdowns. And again, it's fun getting a ton of goals scored, right? But it is not fun trying to break down 6+ goals every single game. So the first goal comes courtesy of an own goal from Matinho of Orlando City in the 39th minute. I'm going to see Kai Wagner play a long ball here up to Julian Carranza. And this whole play comes from Julian Carranza's pressure, just like we saw last week in Red Bull Arena, where Julian Carranza put pressure on, won the ball back. Union score a goal with Daniel Gazdag. And so Martinez is going to go ahead and win this long ball from Kai Wagner. He's taking a touch towards the left side of the field. He's not looking forward. He's looking towards the sideline. And as soon as he does that, bam, Julian Carranza is right on him to force a turnover to win the ball back. I don't know if he thought he had too much time or what, but yeah, Julian Carranza completely picked his pocket. When Julian wins the ball back, passes it backwards to Ali Bedoya. And again, talk about going forward. Yes, the pass backwards from Julian Carranza was a pass backwards, but sometimes you do got to reset, go backwards. But as soon as Julian went backwards, went to Ali went forward. Then you have a sideways pass from Daniel Gazdag. Daniel Gazdag is going to go and make a give and go, gets the ball back. Daniel sees Bizo wide open on the right side of the field, and as soon as Bizo gets the ball, he sees Mikhail Ua making a back shoulder run off of Antonio Carlos. And as soon as Bizo sends in that cross, it takes a deflection off of Matinho, and in the back of the net, it goes for the Union. And it's a well-deserved goal. They had to work hard for it, and it doesn't matter if it's Bizo or who scores a goal. The Union will take a goal. The second goal came courtesy of Mikhail Ua in the 43rd minute. And this comes from Orlando City having a turnover, Leon Flock winning the ball. And again, going forward, always looking forward. Leon Flock, as soon as he picks up that ball, he looks forward, sees Daniel Gazdag wide open. Daniel Gazdag has a quick look over his shoulder. And that's how you know you're a really, really good player, where before you receive the ball, you're always looking over your shoulder, seeing, all right, how much space do I have? Where's the defender? And I think that's so underrated. And I think that's why Daniel Gazdag is one of the best number 6s and one of the best number 10s in MLS is because he's always aware of what's around him, who's around him, and that quick look over his shoulder to see, all right, I have a ton of space here. And as soon as Daniel Gazdag takes his first touch, he sees Mikael Uhre is wide open on the left side of the field. It's going to beat Antonio Carlos with pace. And so Daniel Gazdag slots this ball through a ton of open space. Terrible defending here from Orlando City. They did not keep their shape at all. Beautiful ball from Daniel Gazdag and fantastic finish from Mikael Uhre. A little bit bad goalkeeping in my opinion. Great finish. Not going to take anything away from it, but I think the goalkeeper gave him way too much space to aim at his near post. The goalie has to have that covered better at his near post. But the Union are going to take it. Great transition from the Union. The third goal of the night was courtesy from a Daniel Gazdag penalty. And so this whole play developed from a free kick from Kai Wagner. He's going to go ahead and send in the cross. And the ball is actually going to be won, headed away from Antonio Carlos. Well, Carlos's header is to open space. Beiser's the first one to react to it. And as soon as Beiser sends in the cross, it hits off of the goalie. The goalie spills it. Mikael Uhre reacts to it. And as soon as Mikael gets a touch to it, the goalie kind of blocks Mikael from getting to this ball. The ball was going out of play. I think this is a questionable 50-50 penalty. But I think once the referee gives the penalty, you've got to have clear and obvious evidence that it's not a penalty. It's hard seeing those plays overturned when they've already ruled it a penalty on the field. For me, I think it's 50-50, but Daniel Gazag's been money from the spot this season, went straight down the middle. Goalie gets a hand on it, but the Strong had a lot of power behind it, and the Union go up 3-0. Then in the 63rd minute, we have a goal courtesy of Bedoya, and this is the play I was telling you guys about where Jose Martinez is going to go ahead and get this ball from Beiser. Beiser sees he only has 2 players in the box, where Orlando City has 3 players in the box, so it's probably not best to send in the cross. So he's going to go ahead and reset this ball back to Jose Martinez. And Jose Martinez knows that Kai Wagner is going to find himself in a ton of space on the left side of the field. And so as soon as Jose Martinez gets the ball, he doesn't really look at Kai Wagner. He sends the ball into the space. Perfect pass to Kai Wagner. Kai Wagner is going to go ahead and take a touch. One touch. Cross into the box. Great run off of Schlegel from Ali Bedoya, who's wide open for the header. 4-0 for the Union. But just, look, we love when the Union go for it, but sometimes you do got to reset. And when the Union do reset, they're always looking to go for it. They reset with Bizo. Martinez plays forward to Kai Wagner. Kai Wagner takes a touch, cross into the box. That's just a great play to go from right to the middle to the left, back into the middle for the goal. Just great build up there from the Union. I think that's a play that maybe gets a little bit overlooked out of all the goals scored in this game. And then in the 75th minute, goal from Pereira of Orlando City. This is going to come in from a long throw-in from Martinho, where I think this is one where they should have probably have had a look on VAR, because when Martinho goes to throw this ball in, his foot crosses the sideline, goes into the play before he releases the ball. And so that should be a foul throw-in, but they don't go to VAR. They let the goal stand. And so you're going to have Martinho throw this ball in between Bizo and Jacob Glesnes. Neither one of those guys were able to react to the header. Bizo, that was more so Bizo's guy than Jacob Glesnes. And as soon as the ball gets headed down to Pereira, it's going to go ahead and take a touch. Second touch, great finish. The Union unable to shut this down. Ball gets by 4 Union players. I'm not sure how nobody was able to get a block in here. I think there's nothing Andre could have done. His vision was blocked with all the Union defenders in front of him. But yeah, again, I mean, third goal this season, the Union have conceded on a set piece, which the Union do not concede set pieces, but it is annoying, and I mean, there isn't really much to complain about in this game, but if you want to complain, I mean, complain about this goal that Orlando scored for sure. And then in the 87th minute, just have a typical Kai Wagner corner, and Jack Elliott's wide open. When you're 6'6", odds are you're probably going to win every single header. Jack Elliott's unmarked and just heads the ball down, and the Union won this game 5-1. And like Jim said earlier, the Union definitely could have had a couple more goals in this game, but there's not a ton to complain about. So let's go ahead and talk about Blunder of the Week. And this was a great week for Blunder of the Week, where I legit had 6 choices, where it started off during the week where Miles Robinson for Atlanta United got arrested for not paying his bar tab. So I was like, this is a strong contender for a Blunder of the Week, but I don't feel confident giving it Blunder of the Week because, there's not enough to this story where I feel confident that, he should get Blunder of the Week. I know there's been details out, but I don't think we have the true story of exactly what happened at a bar with Miles Robinson. So I'm not giving that Blunder of the Week. And then next up, it was the whole spying scandal with Orlando City spying on Sacramento's practice in a public field, but it was a closed practice. Yeah, it's slimy, but you had a public field. So I'm like, I'm not going to give that Blunder of the Week. And then you have the whole situation with Jose Martinez suspended for kicking over the rice and chicken table over in the locker room after Atlanta United lost to Portland. Jose Martinez also refused to practice in a 11v11 because he knew he wasn't starting the game against Portland. And so Atlanta United decided to suspend him for a game. And so I was like, this is a great Blunder of the Week. But then New York City apparently trimmed out a portion of a press conference of head coach Nick Cushing going at a reporter where he didn't like the reporter's question, completely flipped out on him, and New York City erased that portion of the press conference so the public couldn't see. And that's really, 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 really slimy. You never do that. And it's like, okay, if you're hiding this, what else are you hiding? Because remember the whole David Villa scandal with New York City. It's not the first time they've hid stuff. And so then you go ahead and look at my fifth choice. It was Nice and Cologne fans fighting inside of the stadium before the Europa League match on Thursday night. But I didn't give that Blunder of the Week because the Blunder of the Week is going to go to New York City. Yeah, you could definitely give them Blunder of the Week for hiding the press conference. But did you guys see the own goal that Cincinnati was gifted from New York City? This comes from 40 yards out from New York City. They completely passed the ball back. Sean Johnson's out of his net, and I mean, I don't know what Martins was doing here. Just has a look back and hits this pass backwards with a lot of pace and just puts this directly on net. Sean Johnson's completely out of position. I mean, this whole play looks completely scripted. And if I'm doing a bad job describing it, which I probably am, I'll go ahead and leave this goal clip in the show description. But this for sure gets Blunder of the Week for an own goal from 45 yards out. How how do you manage that? You can't make that up. And New York City would come back and tie this game 1-1 on Wednesday night. But yeah, what a terrible own goal from New York City. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on social media, follow on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Free Kick Pod. Wherever you get your guys' podcasts, The Free Kick. Check out the website, thefreekick.net. And I'm going to try to get a article out for you guys either on Thursday or Friday as I'm heading down to Atlanta Saturday for the game. And so I won't have time to write my article on Saturday morning, nor will I record a match preview this week. I may not. I'm not sure yet. Depends if I get a response back. But if not, I'm definitely going to have a match preview for you guys up on the website. So if you guys want to go ahead and check that out, I really appreciate that. And I also potentially have some news to share with you guys here in an episode or so. So I'm just waiting on a confirmation. And as soon as I get confirmation, I can't wait to share this news with you guys. But you guys will have to wait, just like I have to wait to get confirmation. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.